Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Comic Nation TV news desk here at ineedcomics.com, part of the Pop Culture Network. We're taking a look at comics that came out this week, giving you the Dirt's Eye view. And I also want to know what you think. So, at any time during this review, you feel like you must get the word out, get the word out. Leave a comment on YouTube, come to ineedcomics.com and post under the article. Join the forums of the Pop Culture Network and talk to us in the comic book section. You can also send me an email, dirt@popculturenetwork.com, or you can leave a voicemail message on our 24-hour voicemail line. It's area code 217-953-4025. Now, there's a 10-minute time limit. If you call the voicemail line, please don't use it. Try to keep your messages about 20-30 seconds. And if you do, well, we might actually play it here on the show next time. But let's take a look at some of the comics that came out this week. And, well, let's start the discussion, shall we? First up, we're going to take a look at DC, starting with DC Universe Legends. Now, time and time again, DC has shown that they don't really know what to do with a lot of the superheroes. They want to put them in these horrible situations to show them fighting out of it, but they're afraid to make any real changes. With DC Universe Online Heroes, this is the comic book series that ties into the video game, and because it's an alternate universe, they don't have to worry about those limitations. So, they have finally allowed this story to go someplace just amazingly incredible. If you've ever been a fan of Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Lex Luthor, Brainiac, Lois Lane, if any of those characters mean anything to you, you need to be picking up this series, and the latest issue goes crazy. Basically, Superman, upset that Lois Lane has died, yes, died, decides to take out Brainiac. And what can you do to stop Superman when he's on a death charge? Well, nothing, as it turns out. I loved this book. I loved seeing Superman just tearing things apart and breaking stuff. I like that. I like it a lot. Next up, we have Detective Comics. Now, part of this relaunch of DC Comics, we saw the first issue was very brutal and very dark. In this issue, issue 2, we see a little bit more about Bruce Wayne's life, just as the regular millionaire playboy, his girlfriend, which kind of causes a problem with the latest issue of Catwoman. But you see, Bruce as this playboy, showing that persona, the interactions he has with other business leaders, with the press, so to speak. And one thing that's really nice is that the first issue showed Joker as being a very deeply deranged and psychotic individual. In this issue, we find out that there's someone even more psychotic than Joker. Unless, of course, it comes out in the end that Joker was really playing him for a fool and was in charge the whole time. But regardless, there might be a dusty finish there at the end. But for the most part, it looks like there's a new villain in town who's going to be taking control of things, and Joker might lose his legacy as Gotham's worst criminal. Next up, Action Comics, living true to its name, being full of action. Grant Morrison is redefining Superman and his relationships to the people around him, and one of the big reveals in this issue is it looks like Lois Lane's current boyfriend is the guy who's going to become Metallo. Now, those of you who read the first issue, you're going to pick up the second issue and you're going to go, wait a minute, this doesn't follow exactly. No, it doesn't. This book is chronicling the past exploits of Superman before the events that happened in Superman 1. So your backstory, your character histories, all of that is coming out here. And so when you're reading this book, it's not a straight issue to issue story. Time has passed in between issue 1 and issue 2. And I kind of like how it's jumping around and giving these kind of big moments, these pivotal moments. It may only be a couple weeks since the last issue. It may have been a couple months. We don't really know for sure. But I have to say, overall, I am digging Grant Morrison's run on the title. Justice League International. We're finally getting a villain who is, conquering the Earth, who is, worthy of having heroes band together to fight him. What we've got is Booster Gold actually stepping up and trying to be a leader, which is quite different from the Booster Gold we were familiar with in the old universe. We also get Batman, again, as a great character. I don't know why he's the new Wolverine of the DC universe, showing up in every possible title, but again, here it works. It's enjoyable. And I'm liking Justice League International quite a bit. Now, moving over to Marvel, we do have the new the new issue of Deadpool. Now, this issue of Deadpool continues the storyline of the crazy doctor from the insane asylum who has a thing for Deadpool. And I must say that this particular story is disgusting. It's funny. It's heart-wrenching, but not really. But overall, it is so incredibly fun. It was so incredibly awesome. The ending is setting up for something amazing to be coming next month. And it's one of those things that as soon as you realize what's going on in this issue, and you get what the setup is for the next issue, you begin to go, this is genius. How come no one ever thought of this before? And because it's Deadpool, it's going to work in an amazing way. I don't want to spoil it. I want you to go out and read it. Also, because Marvel only put out, 5 books this week or something small, they had a tiny week, there's not really a whole lot that we have to choose from, but I did decide to try out the new Avengers book. It's Avengers 1959, and this follows the story of Nick Fury as he builds his first Avengers team, and this is spun out of the pages of, I believe, New Avengers is where this was taking place. This is Howard Chaykin artwork, which takes a little bit of getting used to. Not everybody's a fan. I'm not always a big fan of his work. It's okay here because it's a flashback story, but one of the big problems with this story is that it is set so far in the past with these characters that it's kind of hard to really care about what's going on. I mean, after all, Nick Fury is still around in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aughts, whatever you call them. So, him doing stuff in 69 doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. There are relationships being formed between characters, people are interacting, but it just doesn't feel like it really matters. And if you just heard that extra noise, I got a new email. I'm glad I forgot to disable the sound on this before I started, but regardless. Also this week we got a new episode of... God, I keep saying episode. Why do I keep saying episode instead of issue? It's a new issue of Walking Dead. I guess because I'm thinking about the new episodes of Walking Dead that are coming. But this issue of Walking Dead, his stuff is finally happening. One thing I've been saying on Comaholics for a while is that Walking Dead keeps building up to something. It keeps feeling like... it's eventually going to explode, but not really a whole lot's been happening. Not even the No Way Out storyline really seemed to do that much for the status quo. But now stuff is happening. This issue of Walking Dead is one of those where as soon as you're done reading it, you want the next issue. And I know these are being written for trades, and... Kirkman has started to fall into this trap where the last page of the previous issue and the first page of the next issue are basically one nonstop story because it's all going to be put together in a big book at the end. But in this case, it actually works really well because it's leaving on a cliffhanger, and I really, really, really want the next issue. Let's see, we also have a new series from Asylum Press called Chopper. Now, apparently this is going to be an online webisode video series, but they've released this comic book series that either adapts it or ties into it. I'm not sure because the webisodes aren't out yet. But this is basically retelling the story of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow and the Headless Horseman in the modern day setting. And they do this in the most wonderfully cheesy 80s slasher movie style. If you grew up with the VHS tape slasher revolution, you are going to know exactly what you're getting from this movie. From this comic, which feels like an 80s slasher movie. And I say that with every term of endearment. This is so much fun. There's a biker on a Harley with no head who's taking out these teenagers who are frolicking in the woods and experimenting with drugs and all of that kind of stuff that shows up in these 80s slasher films. This is so great. It's called Chopper, and you really want to check it out. And then finally, a new series from Zenescope called The Theater. Now, The Theater is going to be based around some sort of anthology-type storytelling mechanic where this theater is somehow haunted and things that happen in movies affect the real world. We're not exactly sure how, but the first issue centers around this movie being played about the zombie apocalypse, and it's a very well-done story. I mean, the story of the zombie apocalypse, father and son fighting off the undead hordes, it's been done, you know, over and over. They're doing it in The Walking Dead. You know, it's one of those things that's become kind of a staple of the zombie film, zombie comic, zombie novel genre. But it's told very well here. Raven Gregory has put together this really neat zombie story. And then on the outside of it, you're getting the story of these kids who are going into this movie theater. They're watching this horror film. The movie ends and they go to leave, and this theater is filled with dead bodies. They don't really explain why. They don't really explain how. You don't really know what's going on yet, but there's obviously something more going on in this movie theater. But whether or not the answer to what's happening in this theater comes to a satisfying conclusion down the road is something we'll have to wait and see. But for right now, the story that's told in the middle of this, the movie that they are watching, is very well done. They crafted it incredibly well, and you know, I hope that if you buy the first issue, you're going to stick with the series. But for those of you who are just zombie fans and you just want to read a good zombie story, here's an issue you can pick up right now. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the News Desk from Comic Nation TV on iNeedComics.com, part of the Pop Culture Network. Again, if you want to add your feedback, feel free to comment on YouTube, comment on iNeedComics.com, join the forums at Pop Culture Network, shoot me an email, or leave us a voicemail on our voicemail line. That's going to do it today, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Dirk, call me!